Welcome to episode 2 of Not Financial Advice, where you guys call in. You leave a voicemail, you send me your situations, and I tell you what I would do in your position. Now, as the series indicates, this is not professional financial advice. This is just my honest advice and opinion on what I would do given your scenarios. So if you do want to be in a future video, make sure you drop a voicemail. The number is in the description as well as the pinned comment. Now, let us jump into the first caller. Well, this is a very interesting scenario, and I appreciate you leaving the voicemail here because with most 401ks, this is a very unique situation. For most companies, they typically will match between like 3 to 6% of most people's salaries. And so a 50-cent match up to the IRS limit basically means if this caller here puts in $24,500 that his employer can match up to $12,250 a year in free money. So in total, he would be investing $36,000 a year even though he is only putting in 24 of the 36,000, which is just insane. This is a very rare thing, and if I had to take a guess here, I would say you probably work for a big tech company because those are the only companies I have heard of that even do matches like this. But regardless, I understand your predicament because that is definitely a 401k match you do not want to ignore. But if you want to save up for a house, how do you figure out both of these things at the same time? The traditional advice of getting that 401k match and then maybe focusing on a Roth or saving for a house, that still applies here, but that math is on a lot bigger scale. And so one thing that is a little bit tricky here is we do not know your exact income. But the main thing that matters here is whether that 20% of your income that you are investing is that actually going to hit that $24,500 IRS limit or not. Because if it is not yet hitting that limit, then you kind of have two different levers that you can pull. The first one is you can keep increasing your contributions towards it while also carving out the house savings from the remaining 80% of your income. Or if you are already going to hit the limit, then the logic shifts entirely to how you can structure the rest of your take-home pay between living expenses and the down payment fund. Now, based on you having the predicament here, if you were already hitting the limit, I do not think you would be in this predicament. So I would assume that you are not hitting the limit yet. So the main thing that you would want to do now is try to keep throwing that 20% of your income towards it. And then if you can, try to carve out some of that house savings out of that remaining 80% of your income. And one of the key things I want to emphasize here is you do not have to fully solve the house situation before you are investing in getting the match. And you also do not have to fully invest before saving up for the house. Like both things can be done at the same time. They might just be done at different speeds, which is perfectly fine. And this is kind of what I would do if I were in your position, is that I would try to do both. Like each year, if you can keep saving up for the house and then trying to increase your 401k, maybe you are getting raises. Maybe you are getting bonuses. Just keep throwing that towards the 401k until you can hit that ceiling, but also trying to put money aside for the house. Because even if you can save a certain percentage of your income towards the house, and then have a certain percentage still going towards that 401k, even if the house savings rate does feel slow, it is a lot better to have it be slow and steady than to completely neglect this 401k match. Because like I said, this is a very rare thing. Like most people, 99% of people are not going to be in the situation with the 401k, but it is a lot better to have the house savings rate be slow than to just pause one of the two things and focus on the other one entirely. That is just my opinion here. But one thing I do want to point out is as you start to save up towards the house, make sure you are putting that money in a high-yield savings account. This is what I did when I saved up for my first house. That way you are at least getting interest on it along the way. Because, if the down payment is 30, 40, 50, maybe it is even $80,000, it could be a lot of money. You definitely want that earning at least 3 or 4%. And the best part about a high-yield savings account is that it is very liquid. It is normally protected and it is actually growing a little bit while you are still working towards the purchase. And so you definitely want to at least get some yield out of that. But I would not invest that money towards the down payment in the stock market. Make sure it is in a high-yield savings account. That way you are not sitting there putting all that money into some risky asset. And that also goes for the stock market as well. I would not invest your down payment money towards the stock market because what if the market drops 30% over the next couple years? Then you have to wait for it to recover. You do not want to deal with that. Just keep putting that money to the side in that high-yield savings account. And one thing that you did mention that I did kind of have a question about is you mentioned that you do have a family and that is part of the reason you want to save up for a house. So my question for you is there a second income in the household? Like, does your partner actually work a 9 to 5 or do they work at all? Because if they do, what you can do is you can focus on the 401k side and your partner's income could be more focused on saving up for the house. And that I feel like could be like kind of a hidden lever that would make everything work. That way you can get that great match and then you could still use your partner's savings to save up to buy the house because you are a team. That is the way I try to view that at least. So that is my take on how I would approach that situation. Very unique situation to be in, and I definitely say you are in a great position right now, so just keep at it. Alrighty, so that is caller number 1. Now jumping into caller number 2 here. I actually love this voicemail because it is a very interesting thing. Not many people have this mindset, especially in the finance space, because a lot of times you see the finance bros that glorify the $300,000 investment banking grind, but nobody talks about the fact that they are working 80 to 90-hour weeks. They have horrible mental health. They are completely burnt out. Even if they find a partner, they normally get divorced because they are spending all of their time at work and they completely waste their 20s because they are just grinding the 9 to 5. And I think that the fact that you can realize that is not the life you want is a very mature take. $100,000 with good benefits, low stress, and time for work-life balance is a great outcome. So do not ever let social media or just the finance world make you feel any different to that, because you have to do what you think is best for you. And it sounds like you know exactly what that looks like, which is awesome. So in regards to like stable $100,000 a year jobs, it sounds like you already kind of hinted at this, but there are quite a few government and federal jobs that can pay between $80,000 to $120,000 a year, whether that is in finance or accounting, or maybe that is just like different contracting things that have really good job security. They have pensions, they have good work-life balance, and so it seems like you are already aware of that. And another thing too is because you have a master's, you might even start at a higher pay. That is my understanding. A lot of times with those government or state type jobs is if you have more education, you tend to start at a higher starting point, which is also great. So I would say a government or a federal job in finance would be great. I cannot think of a specific role off the top of my head, but I would say any type of financial analyst or a budget analyst would work. Whether it is an analyst for the federal government, or maybe it is different municipalities, or even just like a local government. I think that could definitely be a good move there. Another one that I do feel like is a little bit underrated is utility companies. I am talking about like electric and gas companies. They tend to pay pretty well. They are very stable and they are not going anywhere. Like people need electricity and gas. So I do feel like that industry is pretty stable, as well as kind of going off that point, I do feel like healthcare finance is pretty good. I know we have a couple of people in the Discord that work in finance and the healthcare side of things, and it seems like just a very stable industry because everybody is going to need healthcare regardless of how the economy is doing. People are always getting sick, and people are always going to need healthcare. That is just a necessity in society. So if you could find like a hospital system or maybe a really large healthcare network that needs financial analysts, that would be the role you want to hop into. It does not necessarily have to be corporate finance, but it sounds like you do not want to go down the private equity route, which I completely understand. You do not want to go down like the consulting route or investment banking. So this is kind of where I would land, is any type of analyst role. And a lot of times with those healthcare companies, the benefits are really good too. So that is a pretty nice thing. And then the last suggestion I would say, and some people morally may not agree with this, but defense contractors are very reliable companies. Because if you live in the United States of America, you know why we do not have free healthcare. It is because of America. And we got those defense contractors pumping out money like nobody's business. I am talking about the Lockheed Martins and the Raytheons and all those companies. They are constantly hiring finance and accounting roles that are very stable, they pay well, and I do not think they are super cutthroat. I actually know a few people that used to work for defense companies, and they have told me it is a very calm environment to work in. But again, if that goes against your morals, I completely understand. It is whatever you want to do. And another point I do want to make here is that having $100,000 that is invested wisely over a career beats out people that make $300,000 that is spent on a lifestyle that matches their income. They make $300,000 and they want everybody to look at them and think they make $300,000. They care way too much about what other people think. And if you are somebody that is frugal and lives within your means, you can still build a ton of wealth off of $75,000 or $100,000 a year. You do not have to be making $300,000 a year to become really wealthy. Like you truly do not have to. Because somebody that is making $100,000 with low expenses and good benefits and a pension can retire earlier and wealthier than somebody that is making $250,000 in investment banking, especially if that person is spending $200,000 a year to maintain their lifestyle just to burn out at age 45. And so it is not always about the income. It is actually about the gap between your income and your expenses. So this was a really unique call, and I really like the question you had for me there. And I hope you can find a really good job that can put you in this exact position you are hoping to be in. Alrighty, now jumping into caller number 3. Okay, so the first thing that is good news here is that you are only 22 years old, so whatever decision you make, it is not permanent. You just graduated pretty recently, and you have been a line cook for a month. You are not fully locked into anything yet. And the fact that this small company that you are working for already handed you a finance project, that is actually like a really good sign. They did not even wait for you to ask for it. So I would definitely at least pay attention to that. I think one thing that is interesting about your current situation is you stumbled into a finance role inside a hospitality company, which is a kind of a rare combination that most people do not have in hospitality, finance, and operations. Like, that is a legitimate career path, whether it is with hotel companies or restaurant chains or really large food and beverage companies. They all need finance people who actually understand the industry. And most finance guys do not know hospitality, and most hospitality guys do not know finance. And the fact that you potentially know both does put you in a very unique position. But in regards to the main thing you are talking about, whether you should go down this path or whether you should go down the wealth management path or corporate finance. With the wealth management path, it can be a legit thing over a long period of time. But those first couple of years, regardless of what company you work for, it is very sales-driven. It is a ton of cold calling, and you are trying to build a book of clients. You might be knocking on doors like you are basically a full-time salesman at that point. And it can pay well long-term, but you got to build up a book of business, and you are basically just trying to grind as hard as possible to get as much assets under management as possible. And it sounds like you do not want to go down that path, which I totally get in corporate finance. That can be a flexible path, but if you are not interested in it, then do not do it. In my honest opinion, passion for an industry is real, and that matters a lot more than going into something that might pay a little bit better, but you hate it. But I think the main question here is not whether you love restaurants and the hospitality industry. I think the main question for you is whether you want to build a career in the business side of this industry that you love. Because if the answer is yes, then that is a very viable path and you should definitely take it. But one thing you do want to consider about the opportunity cost of this is that hospitality finance generally pays a little bit less than a lot of other finance jobs. So it sounds like you are already at least somewhat aware of that. But I do feel like if you are passionate about the industry, then the ceiling rises because you are going to outwork and outlast people who are just there for the paycheck. So if I were in your position, I would just see where this finance project is going to take you. At the end of the day, it is just going to be a resume builder, which is great. It costs you absolutely nothing, and you are going to be getting a lot of real experience from it. So that is awesome. What I would also do is try to give it at least like 6 months to maybe a year. Try to keep building up your skills and see if the company grows in the role. And if even after the year you still feel like you may want to pursue a traditional finance role, whether that is wealth management or corporate finance, you are still going to have real experience on your resume instead of just a degree in a line cook job. And there is nothing wrong with being a line cook, but it is good to at least have that finance experience that you are going to get right now. And one thing I really do want to reiterate is you are 22 years old. There is really no wrong move here. As long as you are just moving and you are gaining experience, and over time you are going to be just stacking your skills up. And I really wish that I knew this when I was 22 because I felt like I had to just be in the perfect position making a ton of money. And that is not always the case. The goal is just to trend upward and keep growing over a long period of time. It does not mean that you are going to be growing every single year or every single month. You might even have times where you get set back and you might have a little hiccup in life, and that is okay. That is very normal, but like I said, you are very young, just be patient with yourself. And I hope that you can figure out what direction you want to go. And again, you do not need to figure it all out right now. So just remember that. So that is my third and final caller for the video. I appreciate all the voicemails. Again, if you guys want to leave a voicemail, I have the phone number in the description of the video as well as the pinned comment. That is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like down below, hit that subscribe button. I will see you in the next one. Stay boring, stay patient, peace.